The professionalism of pro wrestlers in WWE is come into question on numerous occasions. Wrestlers are prone to acting in a way which is completely unprofessional, and this can range from poor behavior to outright walking out of the company due to creative and personal differences. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 of the most unprofessional moments in WWE history. Number 10. Hardcore Holly goes too far. One of the more infamous moments of the third season of Tough Enough revolved around Hardcore Holly. Holly has always had a reputation for taking wrestlers way too seriously, and this was on full display with a completely reckless act. During one of the episodes, Holly, who was a trainer on the show, decided to lay into contestant Matt Cappotelli with legitimate kicks and punches. Cappotelli was left with cuts and bruises, and it was even claimed that he was even knocked out following his exchange with Holly. Hardcore Holly would later claim that he needed to teach Cappotelli a lesson in respect, but Holly went too far, and this act completely derailed any support he had from the fanbase. Former head of talent relations for WWE Jim Ross would reflect on the unfortunate incident during his episode of Grillin' JR, and this is what the legendary commentator had to say.
It was an unnecessary situation, and it got Bob the wrong kind of heat with a lot of people. The bully thing was not selling well. It should never sell well. Bully, there's no place for it. So, and people shouldn't teach their kids to be bullies. But Bob was a bully on those occasions, but I don't know that that was 100% Bob's call. I think John Gabork was producing those shows at that time.
That's right.
And, you know, and Gabork got orders from headquarters from Kevin Dunn, and who got them from Vince, because Dunn and Gabork are, you know, have been friends for years. Baltimore friends. He carried out his orders. And again, people are going to say, well, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right, JR. Well, I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm saying this is how it is. This is how it was. So that's kind of where I see that, Conrad. It was Bob got out of step there, and he's lucky he didn't get fired.
Number 9. The Ultimate Warrior holds up Vince McMahon. It's well documented that the Ultimate Warrior had attitude problems during his numerous WWE runs. In July of '91, Warrior sent a letter to Vince McMahon stating he wanted $550,000 for performing at WrestleMania 7, a guaranteed number of working days, and a higher percentage of merch sales. Warrior would also add that the figure was fair and that he meant more to the show than Hulk Hogan. McMahon had no choice but to accept, because Warrior was set to be in the main event of the annual SummerSlam event. But following the show, Warrior handed a letter to say that he was suspended effective immediately. In the letter, McMahon stated, "You threatened to stay at home, thereby not appearing at Titan's major summer pay-per-view event, SummerSlam. I had no choice but to accede to your exorbitant demands. This was a serious mistake on your part." Warrior's 1996 run was also problematic as he began to no-show live events, and this led to WWE terminating Warrior's contract. Warrior would initially claim that his father passed away, but McMahon would claim that Warrior was never close to his father. Warrior would then later state that there was a breach of contract on the part of McMahon, which led him to no-showing numerous events. Number 8. Sasha Banks and Naomi walk out of WWE. Seemingly out of nowhere, news broke in May of 2022 that Sasha Banks and Naomi had walked out of WWE. Banks and Naomi were reigning women's tag team champions, and due to creative differences, they decided to walk out before a Raw show and haven't been seen since. It was reported that WWE wanted to plant the seeds to split the duo up, and they were going to advance towards a Naomi vs Bianca Belair and a Banks vs Ronda Rousey program. Banks and Naomi believed that WWE were mistreating and not respecting the women's tag titles, and that's ultimately why they decided to leave. A few hours after the walkout, WWE went into damage control and issued an official statement. When Sasha Banks and Naomi arrived at the arena this afternoon, they were informed of their participation in the main event of tonight's Monday Night Raw. During the broadcast, they walked into WWE Head of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis' office with their suitcases in hand, placed their tag team championship belts on the desk, and walked out. They claimed that they weren't respected enough as tag team champions, and even though they had 8 hours to rehearse and construct their match, they claimed that they were uncomfortable in the ring with two of their opponents, even though they had had matches with those individuals in the past with no consequences. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. We regret we were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event. Number 7. Charlotte Flair drops the women's title. In October of 2021, WWE booked a bizarre segment in which Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch exchanged their respective titles. Flair was reigning Raw Women's Champion, whilst Lynch was the reigning SmackDown Women's Champion, and due to both women being drafted to alternative shows, a title swap was ordered. As the exchange was about to go down, Flair awkwardly dropped her Raw Women's title on the ground. This made the title look worthless, and Flair's professionalism was called into question. It later surfaced that Lynch and Flair had a confrontation backstage following the incident, and this resulted in accusations being directed towards Flair that she dropped the title on purpose to make Lynch look inferior. According to Flair, during an appearance on Broken Skull Sessions, she dropped the title accidentally. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I did it on purpose, but if people need me to be that bad guy, I'll be that bad guy. Things happen on screen. I would never go on a scripted television show and purposely do something on purpose. It was accidental. Number 6. Shawn Michaels gets Vader's push cancelled. In modern times, Shawn Michaels is one of the most beloved wrestlers ever, but that wasn't always the case. During the mid to late 90s, HBK had a rotten reputation backstage. Michaels was seen as one, if not the most unprofessional wrestler in the entire locker room. He would often be difficult to work with, and this was on full display when he wrestled Vader at SummerSlam in 1996. This was the infamous match in which Vader messed up a spot, and instead of acting with professionalism, HBK kicks Vader right in the face. He would later use his backstage influence to get Vader's push squashed, and due to him being one of Vince McMahon's biggest stars, McMahon took everything HBK said as gospel. He did a number of things during this time period that crossed a line, and a full documented video could be published outlining just how unprofessional the WWE Hall of Famer was during the 90s. Number 5. Shawn Michaels' old self resurfaces. Speaking of Shawn Michaels, at SummerSlam in 2005, he delivered one of the most comical yet unprofessional performances of his career. HBK would wrestle Hulk Hogan in a dream match, and they had a bold decision to drastically oversell everything Hogan did. The reason HBK did this was because Hogan had backed out of doing several matches with him, meaning that Hogan was going to get to win at SummerSlam, and he was never going to return the favor of putting HBK over. Jim Ross, who was on commentary for the match, discussed HBK's overselling, and this is what he had to say. I thought Shawn took some liberties. I thought Shawn was a little light-hearted and being a wise ass at times in that situation, but Michael's ego is such that he cannot have a bad match that reflects negatively on him, and that certainly would have. I thought the match was pretty damn good, quite frankly. Number 4. John Cena gets a match finish changed. The professionalism of John Cena was called into question in the summer of 2010. Cena led Team WWE to take on Team Nexus at SummerSlam, and the intended finish of the match was supposed to see Team Nexus win. This would have presented Nexus as the credible threat in WWE and would have hopefully created some new main event stars. Cena made the bold and brazen decision to go to Vince McMahon before SummerSlam to get the match finish changed. This was a terrible misjudgment on behalf of Cena, as it just portrayed him as completely egocentric. Everyone knew that Cena had made the wrong call, but Cena was WWE's top guy, so he had a ton of influence. In recent years, he's spoken out about how he regrets in getting the match finish changed, but it still doesn't make up for his blatant act of selfishness and unprofessionalism. Number 3. JBL legitimately punches the Blue Meanie. Throughout his career, JBL has had a number of accusations thrown his way regarding his conduct. Numerous ex-WWE stars have labeled JBL as a bully, and we got to see JBL's antics play out live on pay-per-view in 2005. During the brawl between WWE and ECW's roster at the One Night Stand event, JBL targeted the Blue Meanie in a brawl. Meanie would appear with a bloodied face, and it was clear that JBL had maliciously hurt the ECW star. According to Meanie, he believed that JBL wanted to hurt him for criticizing him online. However, JBL said that he was giving Meanie a retaliation blow during the brawl, yet it was rather suspicious that JBL had no cuts on his face whatsoever. Number 2. Randy Orton snaps. Pro wrestling is incredibly difficult to master, and things can go easily wrong. When things go wrong in a match, it's important that wrestlers remain cool and try to get it together. Unfortunately, in early 2010, Randy Orton expressed blatant unprofessionalism during a triple threat match with Kofi Kingston and John Cena. During the end of the match, Kingston was supposed to be pinned following a punt kick from Orton, but Kingston rose to his feet, meaning that Orton wasn't able to execute the dreaded kick. An outraged Orton then hit an RKO and he yelled, "Kingston, John!" Orton's reaction was completely uncalled for. Whilst Orton's reaction was drastic and no doubt unprofessional, he wasn't remotely reprimanded. Instead, WWE lost faith in Kingston and he would be moved drastically down the card. And number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin walks out. Wrestlers walking out of WWE due to creative differences isn't exactly a rare occurrence. It's happened half a dozen times throughout WWE history, and whilst each case is different, arguably the most notable was when Stone Cold Steve Austin walked out of WWE in 2002. Austin was having a weird 2002 as he was being booked in meaningless feuds and he was not being presented as the absolute megastar that he was. Then when Austin was booked to lose to Brock Lesnar in a King of the Ring qualifier on Raw, Austin said no thank you and decided to not show up for the match. Vince McMahon and even JR would publicly berate Austin for his unprofessionalism, whereas fans were split on Austin's decision. The popular discourse at the time was that Austin should have shown up for work, but Austin's logic that a huge match such as he and Lesnar should have been built up massively. Austin himself later in years has outright stated that he regrets how he handled the situation, which ultimately deserves a ton of respect. But there you have it folks, 10 of the most unprofessional moments in WWE history. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.